Hi everyone, welcome to another music-related Musings on. We're going to be looking at album releases from 1984, ones that I remember fondly, ones that I remember not so well, and look at some of the things, some of the music that's sort of gone in and out of my own popularity, but also, the general musical zeitgeist as well, and get a feeling of what was popular in the UK at the time. And then we'll close off by looking at some of the major film releases from that year against stats from the box office in the US. Yeah, so 1984. I think I've spoken about this in probably the 1983 episode, where 84 generally was not a great year for me. I think the end of 83 really, it's one of those situations where I suppose things had come to a head from the previous year. So the middle of 83 was fantastic. And then as it progressed, I think what happened was things that I thought would play out the way they would play out didn't play out the way they would play out. So there was a restructuring at work. Fortunately, I still had a job at the end of it, but not a job I necessarily wanted to do. The sort of not so much a backup plan, but what was originally going to happen as a result of that restructuring, which would have to me been a favourable outcome, didn't pan out as expected through no fault of my own. It was just a bad planning problem on the part of my employers. And then as I went into 84, which is what this episode is going to be about, that all came to fruition to some degree. And then I got struck down with a bad case of mono, as we call it in the UK, glandular fever, caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, I think. And that wiped me out for most of the year, on and off. I mean, I still carried on working because it took them a while to diagnose it. I was off for probably about a week or two initially, and I'd never been off that long. I've never been off sick that long before. I was very rarely off sick, and it took them ages to diagnose it. And by the time they had, I was already struggling at work. So I figured I'd probably be better off struggling at work than struggling at home, or at least that was a perceived wisdom at the time. Had I known now what I'd known then, I should have taken some extended leave of absence or something just to properly recover. But anyway, what's done is done, and by the end of 84 things turned out for the good. So I had a good end of the year and started in end of 84 going back to gigs again. Actually, I should grab my thing somewhere here if I can find it. I've got my gig list, because there was a couple of gigs I did go to the end of 84, but now I cannot find the book. Anyway, let's just press on anyway. I'm sure I'll notice where it is off to the side somewhere. So yeah, Mav was going to grace us with his presence, and he was in here while I was setting up, but he was getting a bit too close to the halogen fire and just generally being a bit of a rascal. Not only that, but he also took possession of my gaming chair, so I was relegated to the filming chair. But then he was so, restless, that he decided to go off and pursue his own interests. So I heard him making his little chirps and moving through the house, looking for, no doubt, stuff to get up to. So yeah, if he sort of languishes by the door, I might let him back in again, and we might get a few helpful chirps and cheeps from him, but I doubt it. So anyway, let's press on. Sans Mav. So this is what the best-selling albums look like in the UK for 84. We've got spillover again from previous years. So 83. This was huge. Like I think I said in the 83 episode, this always reminds me of going to nightclubs in 83 into 84. because Thriller came out in 82, and there was a succession of singles. So I can remember like all through 83 when I was out going to nightclubs, them playing all sorts of stuff. Dancing into the wee small hours. So yeah, it was fun times. Earlier, but like 84, definitely everything came to a head a bit. But like I said, sorted itself out in the end. And looking through this makes me very nostalgic. Yeah, 84. I remember that game played a lot when we were driving down. So the other thing that was going on in 84 and then into 85. So from middle of 83, or well, I suppose it was September 83 through to, what would it be, June, July of 85. I was going down once a week all day to do what was it now? A higher B-Tech, an H-Tech in what was it now? In applied biology, specialising in biochemical techniques. And we used to take it in turns between us to drive down. And the people that I sort of went down to college with, and so I'd always get up pretty early in the morning and then come home pretty late from Brighton, because the rest of the week I was working like regular, actually I say regular, but at that point, place I was working, we were working from like 8:15 through till 5, I think, with 45-minute break at lunchtime. So it was a good old, like 8-hour day back then. So yeah, so really busy basically, because all the lab write-ups had to be done completely separately from that day. So we did all the practical lessons, all the practical labs, and all the write-up, all the homework had to be done in our own time. So yeah, it was a hell of a year really, just for everything can be considered. So yeah, when I look at what was out that year, what was popular, definitely really takes me back to then. October 84 this came out. I always feel that for some reason I always felt that it came out a little bit earlier in the year, but yeah, towards the end of 84. The works by Queen early in 84. It's funny, I never bought this, and my exposure to it mainly was a little bit later on. I used to meet up a friend at a local pub to where we lived before we sort of went on to meet up at our usual pub, which is more down in the centre of the village where I lived, because I was living on the outskirts of a village. And in the centre of the village was the main pub we always used to go to. But often what we would do is go to this more local pub, and then we'll go from there. And they had a jukebox in their CD jukebox at some point. Although I was trying to think when CDs came in, so this might have been maybe a little bit later. Yeah. Again, it's funny when you sort of go back and reflect on this on the fly. You can remember hearing this stuff on the jukebox, but it's difficult to remember at what point CD jukeboxes kicked in. But I certainly do remember sometime after this album came out, listening to tracks off of this off the jukebox in that local place. So yeah, it could have even been later in the 80s, actually. Yeah, this came out when 83, which I've spoken about in a previous episode. So yeah, lots of stuff here. This album, Unforgettable Fire, which I'll talk a little bit more about, I suspect, maybe in 85 episode, I don't know yet. But well, let's just actually, seeing as it came out in 84, we'll go through and actually talk about it. Because this I did, by thinking about it, I did buy when it came out, so I've got it flagged up as one I want to talk about, so I'll wait till then. I'll just do a very quick overview here. So hopefully that gives you some idea of what was like riding high in the UK. Like I said, some of this was released way back in 82. Some of it did actually come out in 84 as well. I did have a copy of that actually. That's a pretty good live album. It's nice. The guitar's nice and prominent on a lot of those tracks as well. So the best-selling album list. Hang on, what did I do there? Sorry. I meant to do #1 albums at this point. There we go. That's better. So you can see that had been released the previous year. Wow, yeah, that was on the charts for a long time. I did end up buying that. I went to see Paul Young a lot later. When did I see him? 1985. So yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit in a future episode, because I've still got of the 1980s. I've still got 80. 85 to do, because I did 86 a previous week, didn't I? So yeah. So one more from the 1980s, and then once we got that out the way, I'm going to talk about 2000s. So yeah. So yeah, Thriller Again, Touch, yeah, from 83, Sparkle in the Rain. When I was out, I was driving. Was it the weekends? Me and my wife were having a chat about Simple Minds, and how, this album, Sparkle in the Rain, was their 6th album by then, because they've been kicking around for a long time. Howard Jones' debut album came out in 84. There's Unforgettable File, Steel Town, which we're talking about. So there are certain albums, like All Years, where I bought albums when they came out, as they were released, and they're still favourites to this day. So let's go through those first. So this one, Van Halen, I'd locked into I was sort of in step. I'm trying to think of a good word to describe this, but I think if when I saw sort of like in step, or I was I'm trying to think of that other lovely word they talk about, pacing. Yeah, I was pacing the band. So what I'm mean by that is as releases were coming out, I was buying the albums, and that had happened from about Fair Warning, I think, onwards. Yeah. So I bought Women and Children first, a little bit after the fact. Or we had a copy of it in the house, should I probably more accurately say. Then I got a copy of Fair Warning, Diver Down, and then 1984. And 1984 has Jump on it, and this track, Panama, which I really like. I used to play this on repeat a lot. So by 84 I would have had a car for a little over the start of 84 for about 6 months, and I think by then I was able to save up enough to buy a reasonably decent cassette player, and I'd also put together bought some slightly better speakers and created my own like speaker enclosures for them. I bought some better speakers from what's the name of the firm now, the UK equivalent of Radio Shack, Maplin I think they're called, who at that point were a mail order firm, but when you ordered it, if you ordered the stuff really early in the morning, because the post in the UK is so fast, it was dispatched in the evening and you only got it the following day pretty much. So that was really cool. So I remember by then I had a cassette player that would do like auto repeat on tracks, that sort of thing. So you could like wind back to the previous track and then it would play, and you could wind back, keep doing that. It would find the gaps on the cassette, and playing this sort of over and over and over again. And then this. So I did buy Screaming for Vengeance, and I think I'd mentioned in another episode as well, I'd been to see Judas Priest on the Point of Entry tour sometime in end of 81, I think. And then I bought Screaming for Vengeance when it came out. And then sometime after, about a year after the band, I'd sort of forgotten a little bit about the band, and then I just picked up this on cassette, random buy really. I wasn't specifically looking out for it, but I saw it in a record shop in the UK and bought it. And it's got Free Will Burning on it, Jawbreaker. So yeah, it was another heavy album before they sort of went for a bit more of a electronic influenced. I don't know what the correct word for it is, but when they went to turbo. So yeah, synthesizers for the first time. Yeah. It's got Defenders on the Face on it. Some heads are going to roll. Yeah. Free Will Burning. And then this, I'm still a big Scorpions fan. I think pretty much kept in step with the band up until Crazy World. I'm trying to think when that later live album came out as well. Yeah. Not sure when that was. But yeah, Love at First Sting. It's got Rock You Like a Hurricane on it. Big City Nights. Still Loving You as well. Yeah. Yeah. One of the classic lineups, of which there are several with Scorpions. This was a bit of a sort of random purchase. I'd been aware of the Cure, but hadn't really sort of fully explored their back catalogue. And I was about, or had just sort of gone back in time and had bought what was it? Yeah, 17 Seconds at some point, or either had or was about to. And I probably told this story before, but one of the people I worked with, that was in the same workplace, and I knew really well, but we worked in different labs. I don't think we ever worked together at the same time in the same lab, because when I went to work in the lab they previously worked in, they'd transferred out somewhere else in the firm, I think. But I think I'd mentioned that when I used to go to college in Crawley, if they ever saw me like waiting at the bus stop in the evening, they would stop and pick me up, and we'd have chats about Thin Lizzy. They were big fans of Thin Lizzy and The Cure, and there was a point when I was working there, when I bought an early Cure sort of glossy biography, and this person that I'd worked with who used to pick me up was actually mentioned in the biography, which they were pretty chuffed about, because they had gone to school with Robert Smith, and I think been in a band at school called Obelisk, something like that. I'm trying to remember the name of I wonder if it even mentions Obelisk here. Huh, there you go. So the information's out there then. So yeah, Alan Hill. So yeah, he knew Robert Smith and members of The Cure. I think he probably was better acquainted with Lawrence Tolhurst. He did tell me one time which one he knew better, but certainly he was, he knew the Cure really well. And they basically, lived in Crawley, really close to. So the place that I worked was in East Grinstead, and I suppose Crawley probably is the next big town to the west of East Grinstead, something like that. And Crawley is where one of the big colleges is, Crawley College, and that's where I went from like 81 to 83 again, 1 day a week while working. But I can remember, as a result of those conversations and him playing stuff in the car, me thinking, I should go out and buy one of the Cure albums. So I bought this, and it's got Shake Dog Shake on it, Wailing Wall, The Caterpillar, but it's a little bit different from the earlier stuff. Much more psychedelic to me anyway. Yeah. There was also other stuff he was involved with at the time. He was pretty busy, so obviously all the stuff he was doing, I think, cross-pollinated. And also this was when they had a bit of a restructuring where Lol Tolhurst switched from playing drums to going on to keyboards as well. In fact, this period in the Cure's timeline gets pretty interesting, because I think at this point the band, like lineup-wise, it almost appeared that it was just the two of them. And so I wonder whether, if we were to look at a timeline, whether it even gives us an accurate assessment of what was going on there. So this is the period I'm sort of talking about. You see here. So what we're up to the fourth album there, which would be third. So the fifth. Yeah, that's the fourth album. '82. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's this gap between then and that particular album. There's that little sort of Chinese Whispers album, Japanese Whispers, which has got Let's Go to Bed on it, The Walk, and good old Love Cats. I remember that being on the jukebox at the pub as well, or one of the pubs I used to frequent. Where were we? The Top, yeah. Cool album cover. I have this in vinyl. Oh yeah, I remember this one now. I get confused. I can't remember. Was this the album that initially came out on import? Or am I thinking of an earlier album? No, I'm thinking of an earlier one, aren't I? Yeah. So One Night at Budokan was the one that had come out on import, and then they actually fully released it, thinking about it now, because it was so popular. Something like that anyway. So this was a second live album. And it was recorded, so Gary Barden had returned to the group on Built to Destroy. Previously, he'd been in the band prior to Assault Attack, because on Assault Attack, Graham Bonnet sings. So he'd left before Assault Attack. Graham Bonnet was in Assault Attack. He then left, but there was a whole thing around Graham Bonnet being the band's whole backstory of that, which I won't go into, as to why Graham Bonnet ended up leaving the Michael Schenker group. And then we have this live album after Built to Destroy, when Gary Barden comes back into the band, which has various songs. There's an interesting version of, I think, is it Desert Song, where of course that was originally on Assault Attack, was it? Yeah. But then of course on the live album would have been sung by Gary Barden. So it's a Graham Bonnet era MSG track, but when on the live one you've got Gary Barden singing. So yeah, Captain Nemo, Rock My Nights Away, Are You Ready to Rock, Attack of the Mad Axeman, Into the Arena, Rock Will Never Die, Desert Song, I'm Gonna Make You Mine, Doctor Doctor. So all over the place, but doesn't have Lost Horizons on it. And was this the one where, yeah, so that was it, when they do Doctor Doctor, I got a couple of members of Scorpions come on. When Derek Sahan was playing rhythm guitar. Yeah, there was a whole, I don't know if anybody listening to this video was around then, but there was a whole, I don't know if conspiracy theory is the right word, but it was a point in time where people had sort of started to become aware of off-stage musicians. So a lot of people didn't really realise it was a thing. I did know through people in the industry, like through talking to sort of session musicians and people like that, and other people that were involved with bands. I did know that often, sometimes, like say, the guitar roadie might fill in rhythm parts on certain bands when, say, like a 4-piece lineup with bass, drums, vocals, and guitar, where the guitarist takes a lead line, the guitar roadie and the guitar tech might fill in with some background rhythm chords. And in several years later, when I spoke to a friend who actually we're talking a little bit about the tail end of '84, who I'd sort of got to know at the end of '84. She went out with a session musician who was also demoed for Marshall at some point, and he was telling the story how he'd filled that position on various tours of basically being an off-stage guitarist for I think for several bands. And he was even sort of talking about the story about there's this apocryphal story how when Graham Bonnet was in the band and he was a bit worse for wear one evening, he sort of dragged on the off-stage guitarist, and I think after that's when things sort of fell apart in the band, or at least that's how the story goes. Whether or not how much of that is true, I don't know. But yeah, so certainly it was interesting for me around this sort of time and into the 80s, where I was sort of understanding a little bit more about the logistics of touring, and people using like off-stage musicians. And then of course people became a lot more aware, like I try to think of the name, is it Spike Edney from who was a backup guy in Queen? Wasn't he there? Yeah, we've gone off down a bit of a side quest here. Let me see what it says about. Yeah, so he was like a touring member, and I remember seeing, several live gigs on video where I'm thinking, well, who's that guy slightly off to the side? He was a little bit more, he got more prominent over the years, I think. So it's a thing, and and I think now bands are being a little bit more transparent about, these, whatever you want to call them, touring members. And as I've said, in some instances, it can be as simple as the guitar tech, doing, filling in occasional lines. And there's even instances of the guitar techs and becoming sort of members of bands and playing. So I know there's in an interview I saw with a guitar tech from the Black Keys. He was their guitar tech, and slowly over time he's become more, or was more integrated into the live sound. Anyway, moving on. Ride the Lightning. So I think this was my first sort of thrash metal purchase. I think I'm right. And I became aware of Metallica probably from two resources. One was Friday Rock Show, but the other one was as a result of, I think, let me check the track listing. Hearing Creeping Death on a sampler. I think the sampler was called something like Hell Comes to Your House, and it was released by either Megaforce or some associated label. Was it Music for Nations? Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the connection was. So they were on Megaforce here. Kill 'Em All was on Megaforce. Okay. Yeah. Not sure about that. Not that it matters too much, but certainly whatever label that compilation album was released on, and I'm pretty sure it was a... Hold on a second. I don't have my camera, so you can't see me doing this, but I'm just going to get out of my chair and see if I can grab... Hell Comes to Your House. Yeah, it was Music for Nations. Has Man of War, Blood of My Enemies, Exciter, Violence Force, Anthrax, Death Rider, Metallica, Creeping Death. Okay. MFN 30. This was... Oh yeah, because I've got all the numbers here. So Creeping Death LP was MFN 27. Yeah. Well, there it is, the guy with the flag. Funny, looks not dissimilar to the Frankie Goes to Hollywood flag guy, actually. In some, although I think Frankie Goes to Hollywood, on the logo, it's more of a sort of pointy pedant, or whatever they call them, pennant. Whereas that's a full-blown flag. Anyway, talking about stuff you can't see, but yeah. I'm sure it's painting a picture in everybody's head. Yeah, right. This is got some cool stuff on it. I'm trying to think. We often have me and my wife have a discussion about like favourite Metallica albums, and this is definitely, I think, high on both of our lists. This is, I think, probably my favourite Metallica album. It's got Fade to Black on it, Following the Bell Tolls, Ride the Lightning, Fight Fire with Fire, Trapped Under Ice. I think it's because there's Creeping Death on here. I just love this. I also have, or did have, this on cassette single, which I bought a lot later, and it's got on Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg as covers on there, which then I think crop up later on that sort of double LP they did, double CD, which had all of their covers on it. Awesome album. First Wasp album, 1984. I remember reading all about the band in Sounds magazine and I suppose Kerrang, and bought this when it came out because there was all the controversy around a certain track that was deleted from the album. But I played this a lot at the time. Two Steps from the Move. This is a great album. Yeah. This is the album I'd heard a lot about, Hanoi Rocks, and finally got around to buying one of their albums, which is a lot later. And then years later, I think you've seen it, I might have shown it, I got a Hanoi Rocks box set of I think the facsimiles of the album covers, but CD versions in like a box. And I think there was a version of this which had both this and the live album on cassette. So all those wasted years, which also came out in '84, from what I remember. Yeah. But I can't remember the timing on that, whether it all came out at the same time. Track I really like on here is Million Miles Away. Power Slave. Yes, good solid Iron Maiden album. Definitely one of my favourites. And when I did get it on cassette, I played it a lot. This has got Rime of the Ancient Mariner on it. 13 minutes 45. Two Minutes to Midnight, Aces High. Of course, the track Power Slave. I didn't know that. Don't think I've ever seen that film. I did watch a number of Dario Argento films on video back in the 80s, but don't think I've ever seen Phenomena. I was always intrigued by his camera work, and I did have a sort of documentary about him actually, which went through all, a lot of the sort of special techniques he was using and special cameras that he was using on certain things. And so I'm just switching back to this because, yeah, 84. It reminds me a lot as well of driving around at Christmas time in 1984. No Remorse, Motorhead album. So this is an interesting one in that it's basically got a collection of the classics on it, and then some. So yeah, it's like a double album. I think it was released as a double cassette as well, and it's got extra tracks on it, like new recordings. And I'm trying to remember on the cassette version. Yeah, my memory's sort of not helping me out here, but I always thought they were all together in one place, but maybe not. Yeah, it's nice to sort of collect. I had a number of these albums already. Like, we had a copy of Ace of Spades in the house, and I owned No Sleep Till Hammersmith and Overkill, and I think there was a copy of Iron Fist in the house, and I had a copy of Another Perfect Day. At that point, I don't know if I owned Bomber or not, bizarrely. So there's one album I never owned on vinyl, actually, is Bomber. I need to rectify that. I'm putting together a list of albums that I really would love to own on vinyl, and Bomber's one of them. Alongside, I don't actually have what I call a regular copy of Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest, which is one of my favourite Priest albums, because the copy I have is that weird double album that was released quite a long time ago called Hero Hero, which has the first two albums on it, and also includes a cover of Joan Baez cover on it, which I'm trying to think what it's called now. Diamonds and Rust, yeah, which is why I bought that one, because that track wasn't on any of the albums originally. But yeah, at some point I'm going to track down Sad Wings of Destiny. Oh, this one. So this is so evocative for me, because towards the end of like 84, I through a sort of existing friends, got introduced to a new group of friends. And that's when, in 1984, things took a turn for the better. So that was really sort of helpful in me sort of navigating through the remainder of the 80s, and definitely, made a massive difference in my life. So, and this track, also this album, and particularly the track Unforgettable Fire, reminds me of that time when it came out, and then into 85 and then on to 86. And I can remember sitting with, there's three or four of us in this little Mini Cooper, and my friend was driving, and she was a big U2 fan and had this on. And I can remember we had to stop the car for some reason to ask for directions, and we're sitting there in the car with this up, reasonably loud, and Unforgettable Fire comes on, and it's raining, and there's these droplets of rain falling down the window pane in the car, whilst so Unforgettable Fire starts off with that sort of little piano piece, I think, and it just reminds me of these sort of falling drops of rain at the start. Yeah, I think you know the bit I mean. That was a really, sort of the harmonics and the opening bit, if you like. Very evocative, and now it just, it's fantastic. I can just as if I'm there, it's like you get those moments with certain pieces of music when I'm sitting in the car, and we just sort of, everything just went really still, and there's these droplets of rain just sort of slowly going down the window on the Mini. And if you've ever been in a Mini, it's a pretty tight space. And then there was Unforgettable Fire playing. So, and this was a major album from that year. So Steel Town. So I went to see Big Country Christmas of 1984. It was, December 84. I can't remember exactly which day, but I do know it was the last day of college in Brighton, because I didn't drive that week, got a lift down with one of the other people that drove. And then I just stayed down in Brighton after college finished. And then a friend of mine came down, and we went to see Big Country at the Brighton Centre, and it was awesome. The only thing is, afterwards I remember being severely dehydrated because I'd been drinking at lunchtime, because it was the last day. So by the evening I was pretty dried out, and feeling pretty bad afterwards, but all through the gig. And when I got home and had a drink, I was fine. But I'll drink of water when I got home. This has got some classic tracks. Flame of the West, East of Eden, Steel Town, Where the Roses Sown, Come Back to Me, wow. Girl with Grey Eyes, Just a Shadow, it's a really good track. Bonus has Wonderland on it, which had come out prior to that, Between the Crossing and Steel Town as well. When did that come out? Earlier on in the year. I was a bit disappointed actually when that wasn't on the album, because that was it's definitely one of my favourite Big Country tracks. I don't have the t-shirt any longer from this. I had a big baggy white t-shirt. I don't know, again, if anybody was around at the time, remember t-shirts used to be like super baggy at that time, particularly the Frankie Says t-shirts. And so it was very much in that baggy t-shirt style. I don't think it had sleeves though, but it was, white and blue, I think. Long since bitten the dust, long since fallen apart. I remember just wearing it all the time. time, what seemed like all the time in end of 84 into 85. Oh, this album, this is a classic. November the 12th, Like a Virgin. Yeah, we played this a lot. Yeah, they played it a lot at clubs as well. Chill Girl, Angel, Like a Virgin. Love Don't Live Here Anymore, Dress You Up. Yeah, it was pretty cool actually. I remember tail end of 84 into 85 when I was hanging out with my sort of new group of friends. We used to make a point, just me and this other friend of mine, the one that he used to drive, who was driving the Mini when we went out for that trip I was talking about. And we used to just hang out at this club in the middle of nowhere, and on a Sunday night, and not necessarily to go dancing. It's pretty cheap to get in, and we used to sort of sit in the outer bar, so you could sort of hear the music, but it wasn't super loud, just chatting and drinking. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So that sort of reminds me of that time, because there used to be a lot of Madonna played at clubs. But I used to quite like those sort of clubs where they were pretty cheap to get in, and they had like a back bar, and so you could just like hang out there if you didn't fancy dancing or you just wanted to listen to the music, the dance music, or whatever they were playing. Because there was also a lot of rock stuff. They'd often play a lot of U2, and there were clubs in Brighton like the Escape Club as well that played a really nice cross section of music, which we used to occasionally go to. I went there a couple of times after gigs actually. So let's just move on to just looking at the year in overview, see what else came out, see what I can remember apart from the ones. Yeah, this was a cool album. It's probably one of my favourite Bon Jovi albums, but I didn't buy it until after I bought, 7,800 Fahrenheit or whatever it is. Yeah, but this has, interesting. This has got, Shot Through the Heart on it, Breakout, Runaway, which I think one of these was recorded in a different session, I think, with a slightly different lineup. Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. One track on here is not recorded with what people would recognise as a sort of that period, that classic early period Bon Jovi. Yeah. So the Runaway track has a different lineup on it. Fistful of Metal by Anthrax came out. A lot of the early thrash stuff I didn't buy until the following year, stuff like that. So like I said, the first one I think I bought when it came out would have been Ride the Lightning, and then I bought trying to think the one after this, was it Spreading the Disease, I think. I bought that when it came out, but I didn't buy Fistful of Metal until a lot later. There's a lot of stuff here that I bought after it took me a while to sort of clue into stuff. So like the Steve Vai Flexible album. Where are we? It's My Life by Talk Talk. Didn't buy that. Oh, Declaration by The Arm came out that year. Yeah. I went to see them the following year. I think I've seen them twice actually. They were really good. But yeah, I didn't buy that until I sort of went to see them in 85, so that's why I didn't include it on the list up here. But it's definitely a big favourite of mine, and that one, along with a couple of albums that came out in 85, which would be the Sisters of Mercy debut album and Bon Jovi's second album, I used to play a lot when I was out walking on the forest. And this has got, where is it? Yeah, Declaration, Marching On, 68 Guns, Blaze of Glory. Yeah. Awesome album. There's quite a few, I think, later variants of that as well. They've done some re-releases on CDs, I think, of their earlier stuff, which has some extra tracks that were recorded around the same time in the studio. Debut album by Rat, I didn't really get into them until a couple of albums in. Debut album by the Smiths, didn't really get into them until probably when they were pretty close to splitting up. I think they might have played in Brighton around the time of Meet His Murder, possibly, but I didn't get to go and see them, if they did indeed play. I just remember seeing all the ads at the time when I was down there, so I assumed that they were playing. Is that the Debut Dead Can Dance album? Another one that took me years to sort of clue into. Rising Force, another one where I was a couple of years later. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of ones here that I eventually got around to listening to several years later. Burn the Witches by Warlock. Debut album, wow. How was that in 84? Oh, Vengeance by You. Oh yeah, I didn't really pick up on them until 85. I did go and see them. But yeah, I bought the next album after that, and then at some point we did have a copy of this in the house, I think. Eye for an Eye, what are they? Debut album by Corrosion of Conformity, wow. That always saying, what's that, third album? Yeah. Mysterious Human League. I did buy this, but I just can't remember when I bought it. I know I can remember where I bought it, because I can remember after I'd it was way after that. A number of years later, I was on the end of year employers committee for Crawley College, but that was a lot later, and I remember going over to Crawley and hanging around lunchtime before the meeting and going into Our Price or somewhere like that and buying this, because I can remember like listening to it on my my Walkman, I think. So I had it on cassette, but I didn't buy it when it came out. Stay Hungry by Twisted Sister. I didn't own that. I think my middle brother probably did. Yeah, that's their debut. Touch Dance. I thought I owned this, but I don't recognise the cover, which is odd. Yeah, I'm sure I had a copy of that on cassette. It's just the cover looks different from what I remember it. Eden, debut album by Everything But the Girl. Yeah, it's got... I'm not sure which one has got... I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, definitely a band that worth checking out if you've never checked into them. Interesting, yeah, combination of sort of new wave and jazz. Tracy Thorn, I think, has also collaborated with all sorts of people over the years. Done vocals on, I think, Massive Attack stuff. So, Hyena, which is the album with they recorded with Robert Smith, I believe. Yep. Where he sort of was in the band for a while. I do have this, but I didn't buy it till years later, mainly because it was in... I was used on a soundtrack. What's the name of the film? Yeah. There's some connection to some film, and I just can't remember what it's called. At this point, Barry Adamson was in the band, and Blixer, Mick Harvey. What's it called? Is it Wings Over Berlin? Something like that. Which does have one of these tracks on it. Parade, what was that? 4th album by them, wow. Oh, Purple Rain, I forgot about this. Yeah, I think the trouble is I couldn't remember when I bought it. Because I remember seeing the film on video and then buying the album. So, I don't think I bought it when it came out. Last in Line, I owned that years later, but I can remember, has that got the video? Yeah, I remember seeing the video for that on something like The Tube or one of the Friday night sort of TV music shows. 4th album. Yeah, quite right. I've been going for quite a long time. Melt House was when I suppose I discovered them. Probably It's in the Jungle. Another interesting album cover there. Yeah, 2nd album, 84. 4th album by Tank. Wow. Oh, that's right, because I think This Means War was the 3rd album, something like that. We Trust, 6th album by Y&T. I actually saw Y&T in the 2000s. I can't remember who they were supporting. It was like a 3 on the bill, and it might have been Whitesnake, but I could be wrong about that. I'll have to check all those up actually when I do the 2000s episodes. I'll try and restructure my memories of gigs I went to at that time. Flock of Seagulls, 3rd album by them. That's a good album. Yeah, they're a good band. Now, this I didn't buy when it came out, but I had a friend that was big into Psychedelic Furs, and I remember hearing this. It's got Heaven on it. It's a really good track. I didn't buy anything. I bought stuff by then sometime between these 2 albums. And then Midnight to Midnight when it came out, and that's when I saw them live. Dreamtime. So yeah, the Cult supported Big Country on that gig at Christmas, and I remember going to see them, and Resurrection Joe had been released pretty close around that time, which was a follow-up single to the album. It's not on the album. And a friend of mine, or someone I sort of just met, a sort of new group of friends, she was a really big Cult fan, and it was her music taste. The favourite bands was a really interesting combination of the Cult, Marillion, and Chris de Burgh. Not quite sure how that came about, but anyway, she was very goth-like, had sort of very blonde, crimped and back-combed hair. Very I was going to say formidable, but it looked very impressive. Great to go to gigs with. And she kept on about this band, and I remember me and my friend who I'd been to the gig with were looking at each other going, well, we didn't think they were that great. And so in 85, and I'll probably talk about it more at the time when we get around there, I went to see them again with her, and it was just light and day. It was in a real small club as well, and I saw them twice that year, because I went back to my other friend who I'd seen them supporting Big Country, and I said, we should check them out again because they're really good. And then in the end, I ended up seeing them 4 times. First time when they supported Big Country, twice in would be 85. Once when they were touring to support the single She Sells Sanctuary. Once when they were touring to support the album Love. And then again whenever, whatever the album after Love was, which I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. Which I've probably told the story of in another episode. And this is and then after I'd got into them in 85, I think impressive was the word I was thinking of instead of statuesque or formidable. Yeah, impressive. Very impressive looking young lady. So this has a number of really cool tracks on it. Spirit Walker, 83rd Dream, Go West, Flower in the Desert, Dreamtime. And that then forced me to sort of track down certain singles, track down this, The Cult were really actually, I would say, the first band where I went on apart from probably Queen, where I went on a really serious retrospective jag on their stuff. So because they were releasing all sorts of interesting like 12-inch singles and variants and all sorts of stuff. And of course pre-internet, that was absolutely fascinating for a music fan, because like you kept seeing all this stuff and you wouldn't, how did you find out about it except from reading the music press? Sense of Death by Destruction, that's a debut EP. I think it's normally put together with what's the one after it? Yeah, Infernal Overkill. So nowadays, if you sort of buy this on CD, you tend to, I think, end up with both Sense of Death and Infernal Overkill. And I think the version I've got, which I bought a lot later, is that combination. Don't Break the Earth by Merciful Fate. This is a really cool album. They were second album by them. I'd first heard them around the time of, which is the one with Cursed by the Living Dead. Doomed by the Living Dead, that was it. Doomed by the Living Dead. Yeah, that's when I sort of around the time I'd heard them, but didn't really pick up on them. I didn't quite know how to take King Diamond's falsetto vocals at that point. But yeah, certainly warmed to them, and pretty sure. Which album did I end up on? It might be this one. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it was that one. Yeah, because this has got curse. Yeah, so this one. Maybe why do I recognise this cover so well? Maybe I just listened to it on Spotify at some point. It's quite possible. Debut album by Queensryche. I do own this on vinyl. I bought it quite a number of years later. Someone I worked with in the 80s, their son was big into this band. It was one of the assistants to, I think, my boss, who used to sort of type up all the development records and stuff like that for the labs. Her son was big into Queensryche. She'd often talk about it. Some Great Reward, stuff like that. Didn't really start listening to Depeche Mode a lot until around the time of Music for the Masses, which I think I've mentioned in previous episodes. What are we up to here with compilation album? Okay. The Unforgettable Fire. Yeah, definitely I think this is my favourite U2 album. I think it's because of the memory of that. Yeah, it's like a lot of things. March of the Saint, debut by Armoured Saint. If you've never checked out this album, check it out. There's also an interesting podcast episode, and I can't remember the name of the series. It's something like tracks or albums that defined heavy metal. I think it's tracks. It's called Tracks That Defined Heavy Metal, something like that. And one of the early episodes has this has a track off of the Armored Saint album. I didn't really get into them until quite a bit later. Yeah, Symbol of Salvation, 91 was when I started listening to them. Oh, there's that 74 Jailbreak. It's interesting to track down. Some of the stuff was on here. Song Jailbreak was actually recorded in 76. Yeah, Steel Town, Perfect Strangers by Deep Purple. Yeah, Reformed Lineup. Didn't buy that at the time. Or ever. Running Wild, and so this would have been pre-pirate era, Running Wild, before they got a little bit piratey, I think, which would have been this album. So yeah, they were kicking around. What were they classed as then? Speed metal. Oh, Treasure by Cocktail Twins, third album by then. Yeah. Seventh Triumph album. Morbid Tales by Celtic Frost. This is a classic. And I didn't really listen to them until To Megatherion. And then I went out and bought the version I've got of this, I think, is the full LP version, I think. I'd have to check. Yeah. I think I may also own a copy of it on CD as well. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And there we go. And then lots of stuff that was released at various points, which in Spotify isn't collected under a specific date, but I'm sure probably does have dates attached to it. Quick look at the metal stuff to see if I've missed anything. Yeah, I bought that years later. For the metal we mentioned. Oh, first Bathory album came out that year. Yeah, if you've never checked out that, it's a cool album to check out. I remember seeing ads for it in Kerrang. But yeah, I didn't listen to it until a long time afterwards. Black and Blue. Whose album was that? Who was in there? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, I don't recognise those members. Let's see, Thangol. Earthshaker, wasn't they? Yeah, we're a Japanese band. Yeah. Wow. There's quite a number of albums out here. Keel Lay Down the Law. So, what was the guitarist in Keel? Mark Ferrari, is that? Yeah. Okay. I was trying to remember the name of the band that Yngwie played in before he played in Alcatraz and before he was sort of a major solo artist. Were they Steeler, weren't they, or something like that? Yeah. Steeler, that was it. When did that come out? 83, so yeah. Previous year. Oh, Metal Massacre 5. Of course, So these are pretty interesting. I wonder if these are on Spotify. I've never bothered to check, actually. Hit the lights, Metallica. Version 2. Okay, so going back up this side. Oh, I forgot about this. I bought this. Oh, yeah. I completely forgot. I love this album. They played on, they did a concert on that, I've mentioned it before, haven't I? Live from London. Oh, yeah, this is a cool album. They're just so funny. Yeah, that should have been on the list up here. Because I was listening to that again quite recently. Oh, dear. Oh, Wasted EP. They were a good band. They got Paul Raymond in the band. Yes, Pete Way, Paul Raymond, Andy Parker. Yeah. So I've forgotten actually that Andy Parker was in the band. So it's like, yeah, sort of almost like a variant of UFO. I don't know if anybody remembers the Vices album. Yeah, so that explains things. So he was on for a short period of time then. Not in the very first lineup. Avoid War and Pain, debut album. Good, solid Canadian metal from Quebec. Didn't get into them until, yeah, probably Killing Technology. Did I have not? No, I didn't. Not been lucky enough to see them live. Oh, I do own a copy of this on CD, but didn't listen to it till a lot later, off the back of reading some doom metal article in Kerrang, not Kerrang, Terrorizer. Same with this, but probably the second album by St. Vitus. Or not. Maybe Born Too Late is the one I'm thinking of by St. Vitus, anyway. Persian Risk. Now there's a name. Yeah, so that had Phil Campbell in it. So a later of Motorhead. So that would have been the lineup of Motorhead. Actually, so that album came. So yeah, that album must have come out, and then he joined. So he was in there till '84, and then he joined Motorhead, and it would have played on, the 4 extra studio tracks on this, along with Wurzel, because if you remember, Motorhead expanded up to a 4-piece after previously being a 3-piece, up to and including when Brian Robertson was in the band for was it Another Perfect Day? Yeah, so that's a pretty good live album, that one. We Want More. I think I had it on cassette. Yeah, it's got Back on the Streets on it. So it's got some interesting ones from, throughout Gary Moore's sort of history. So stuff from Victims of the Future, stuff from Corridors of Power, but then stuff from Back on the Streets, and also that short-lived G-Force band that he had. Right, just moving into in-year release. Here we go. So this is stats. So yeah, Beverly Hills Cops, Ghostbusters, Temple of Doom, Gremlins, Karate Kid, Police Academy, Footloose. So it's another one where the only one I think I probably saw at the cinema is Star Trek. The rest of them of which I think I've seen all of them at some point, except for maybe Footloose, not sure. I think I've seen this as well, actually. I would have seen later on DVD, not DVD, on video, on VHS, on rental. Yeah, this is a really good film if you've never seen it. Yeah, I watched it around 85. Faithfully Yours, Footloose, Splash, Police Academy, Friday the 13th, Final Chapter, Temple of Doom, Ghostbusters, Purple Rain, which he mentions. The Terminator. Yeah, I didn't watch that until 85, 86, maybe. And then Beverly Hills Cop. I don't think I saw it. I might have seen it at the cinema, but I don't know if I did. Cool. So yeah, cool year for music. For me, not so good at the start of the year. Got a little bit better to the middle of the year, and then got really good at the end of the year. So yeah, it's one of those things. But the last 85 music-related musings on we're going to do, the last 80s one is going to be 1985, which was an awesome year. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.